Welcome to the Bowel Chronicles, where we dive deep into the world of bowel health. I'm your host, Nikki Kilpatrick, and on this podcast we have raw and candid conversations with individuals facing various bowel conditions and illnesses. Through personal stories and shared experiences, we illuminate resilience and courage in the face of adversity. Be reminded that each story is personal and unique. These conversations are not to be taken as medical advice or to replace guidance from a doctor or healthcare provider. Our aim is to inspire and empower through these amazing stories, amplifying voices often unheard. So join us as we embark on this journey together. Sit back, listen, and be inspired. Enjoy the episode. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Bowel Chronicles. I'm your host, Nikki Kilpatrick, and today we are joined by Harvey in Sunderland. Harvey, it's so good to have you here, share some of your story today. You're very welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, so I have a stoma. I've got an ileostomy. I had it 4 years ago, back in 2020, due to ulcerative colitis. My ulcerative colitis sort of skyrocketed during COVID. It was sort of a steady condition, really. Had a few little flare-ups and a few hospital admissions from the age of 14 when I was diagnosed. I was diagnosed fairly quickly within a month with a colonoscopy and endoscope, and then was stuck on medication, Celifac medication, which is sort of a bit like an aspirin, sort of to keep you tinkering along with no real symptoms, and then things picked up a bit, was flaring a bit more, going like 10 times a day, passing a bit of blood, and then was ramped up to azathioprine, which is an immunosuppressant. And then sort of you're having to have blood tests, take calcium tablets because of some of the horrible side effects from that. But it is a good drug and it works for quite a few people. And then, unfortunately, sort of then was passed around on a few courses of prednisolone. That gives you the usual side effects of quite a big mood phase, water retention, and it sorted it out for the best part. But then the more flare-ups I had, the less it started to work. And there was 1 year of
What was that like as a 14-year-old? You're diagnosed with inflammatory bowel disease at 14, specifically ulcerative colitis. What was that like being at school? You know, you're quite a big sports person. How did you manage with those flare-ups?
it was hard initially because I missed about 6 weeks of school when I was diagnosed. So I missed like summer exams, and was then brought back into school for like the last bit of the summer term. And luckily, the school was very helpful in they sort of briefed everyone in my class to say like this is why he's been off. So there was no real questions.
Okay.
And then I was given the sort of the luxury to leave the class whenever I needed to go
Yeah.
to the toilet. So I'd say they handled it really well. And then and because I was sort of very open about what things, and I said like to everyone, if you have any questions, ask me directly. I don't want sort of any rumors
Yeah.
brewing because that's like the worst thing.
Hmm.
So yeah,
So
on the
your
best.
biggest symptom then was that, you know, you're saying at that stage you were running to the bathroom maybe 10 times a day.
Yeah.
Was it, can I ask, was it like very loose stool with blood in it at that stage? What were your main symptoms?
So it was loose stool with a fair amount of blood going sometimes between 10 and 30 times a day.
Okay.
And then which came with some quite severe abdominal pain, I remember, where I just be taking paracetamol like constantly to
Mhm.
try and keep on top of it. So yeah, but it was more just being transparent with your doctor to help with pain management. Because once you've got your pain under control, sort of everything can fall into place and it doesn't limit your life as much, is what I
Yeah.
found. But it's also pushing your boundaries. Because, like you say, I was a sports person, I was a triathlete. So I'd be training 3 or 4 times a week, and it's sort of having that want to continue life and have something to do each day and have a little goal to get back to where you were before your life was turned upside down, sort of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So would you say that, obviously being a triathlete, fitness and things, all of those things help and count whenever you're battling something
Yeah,
IBD?
yeah. I'd say yeah, they help. They give you a bit of peace of mind when you're going on a run or a cycle. You're able to process things. I think
Mhm.
because if you're in the same four walls constantly, or you feel a bit trapped, and it's sort of go out and explore the world and
Mhm.
work out how best to come to terms with things. And once you come to terms with things, you're able to speak to people a bit better and feel more like yourself again.
Mhm. So how long then? Because you went through multiple flare-ups and you were kind of able to kind of maintain a bit of normality. How long was it then before you ended up having surgery?
So it was nearly 3 years. Where I had a few hospital admissions were through IV prednisolone, and then we're just sent on the course home. And there's about a year where I was on prednisolone for I think about 45 weeks out of the 52, so significant amount, and
Yeah.
constantly just feeding yourself with tablets. So it's not a good lifestyle really.
Yeah. Again, the
Um,
flare-up was so bad that you had to be hospitalized. It wasn't a case of you being able to have those steroids. For our audience listening, prednisolone is a course of steroids, so you couldn't do that at home orally. You actually had to have them through IV.
yeah. So it was. I think the flare-ups were about between 30 and 40 times during the day, and about 5 or 6 in the night. So
Wow.
there's something called a Pukai score for kids, basically, where the doctors work out how many times you're going, what your symptoms are, if you've got any others, and sort
Mhm.
of ranks the severity of your flare up,
Yeah.
which helped me quite a lot to work out. But I found that I'd always be in denial about it until the doctor was like, "Yeah, you're in a flare up. You need to come in."
Mhm.
So there was like one time we were supposed to be going away on holiday, and we had to cancel it because I had to go into hospital because it was that bad. So your life can just turn like that, unfortunately. And you just have to accept it, I guess.
Mhm. So, at what stage then, were you in a really, really bad flare-up where they decided that surgery was the best option for you, or what was going on?
So then I sort of during COVID, um, I was put on a different steroid to sort of see if that would help,
Mhm.
and sort of then was told I needed to go in. But the doctors didn't really believe that I was going 40 times a day at this point and was bleeding
Mhm.
rather a lot. And was just generally unwell. Like I'd lost about 7 or 8 kilos in about 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And it was uh, sort of, I was just like, yeah, in that stage of denial again, because you don't want to really accept where you are.
Mhm.
Um, because you know what's sort of coming next because I've jumped up all the stages of the different treatments for IBD. That they were like, yeah, we'll have to try you on infliximab,
Mhm.
which is a biologic.
Mhm.
And they sort of were like, all right, well, that will help things. It's got a good success rate, and unfortunately for me, it just didn't work because I was that severe.
Mhm.
Um, and I ended up trying to like was gonna have surgery on a Sunday night after being in hospital for nearly a week.
Mhm.
Um, but because they thought my appendix had burst and my bowel was rupturing,
Mhm.
but luckily I managed to hold off till the Monday morning.
Mhm.
But the surgeon then changed his decision um, from doing a subtotal colectomy where they remove the whole of the large intestine.
Yeah.
He did a defunctioning ileostomy where they just cut the two bowels
Mm-hmm.
and made an ileostomy.
Yeah.
Um, and he was like, "Yeah, you're not ill enough. You're too young. We're going to try this." And I
Mm-hmm.
said, "Well, like, I, how can you say I'm not ill enough when I'm going 40, 50 times a day? Just doesn't make sense." And it was just sort of there was no time to really question it. So
Mm-hmm.
I sort of had the surgery, and they said, "Oh, it'll still be temporary." And the stigma sort of attached, like even 4 years ago, was you don't want a bag like that's going to ruin your life, and that's like from my doctors as well. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like it wasn't nice when you didn't really have an option because you're sort of pinned up against this wall where that is the only thing that is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, and then I was recovering all right, and then unfortunately I developed an ileus within a few days after the surgery. So where the bowel just stops, and um, but yeah, luckily that just passed. Like you're sort of given no by mouth and let the bowel do its thing, and so I went home. But because my peristalsis was still in my gut, I was still like passing a lot of mucus and blood
Yeah.
because it was still in my large intestine. So I was still going 30 times a day, passing this horrible blood, and it was like cramps just going through your body, just constantly on the toilet. And I was still losing a lot of weight because things were just all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So then went back into hospital a few days later, and they were like, "Oh, you're septic." Um, so they so they were like, "Oh, we need to get you into hospital, get you scanned, and get you into surgery." I still has to wait a few days, and then they took me in, and then every time they made an incision and cut the bowel, I sort of just started to bleed out. So sort of the surgery was only supposed to be about 4 hours, and it was just a subtotal colectomy
Mm-hmm.
to remove all the horrible bowel that was in there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it ended up in ICU straight after just to recover, just
Yeah.
because of how poor my body was. And then then a few days in ICU, um, and then was sent back to the ward. But unfortunately, on the way back, managed to develop pneumonia, and then from that, my stitches in my rectal stump blew out, so developed sepsis again. So I had to go back to ICU. Had to get everything. Was like nearly go back into surgery to be sort of drained out and cleaned out.
Mm-hmm.
But luckily that never happened. It was just sort of given the option of um, sitting and waiting in this like horrible mess, really.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so I spent another 10 days in ICU where I had an NG tube, had 14 different tubes and lines in me at this point, just to try and get some nutrients into my body and take some blood and keep things from getting worse as such. Which did work, but it's like incredibly painful because by this point I was weighed about 35 kilos, um, which is pretty crazy. When about 6 weeks earlier, I had a six pack and was a nice healthy like 75 kilos.
Yeah.
So yeah, life turned rather quickly.
That's it's
Uh,
very, very traumatic at 17 years old. And I know I've seen some of those photographs and I've seen a lot of your social media. For our audience listening, watching today, I have shared some photographs, obviously, with the covers of this podcast episode and on social media. You like the guy we see on camera today is not the guy that I've seen in those photographs. You like it's just unbelievable. I was like, who is this guy? Because this is
yeah,
Harvey. I mean, you for doctors to say that you weren't so ill in the first place, any wise man looking at those photographs would see that there was something going on. You were very, very unwell. And I know probably 6 weeks before that, you were feeling healthier and more stronger. But just in that space of 6 weeks, what actually can happen to the body is
Yeah.
crazy. Um, Harvey, can I just ask you? You know, you were so ill, and you knew that surgery was needed for you. For someone at 17 to kind of have to adapt that mindset of I now need a stoma bag to have a better quality of life is very, very difficult. But you're also sitting in that position of, I know that's what I need because it's going to give me a quality of life. I'm not going to
Yeah.
have all of these symptoms. I'm going to feel better. It's still tough on the mental health. It's still tough on the mindset. And then coupled with that, you're just post surgery, and then you're in this position of going back into hospital for more surgery. I mean, were you in the hospital bed going, I told you so. Like I needed a subtotal colectomy. I kind of
Yeah.
feel that's what I would have been thinking of. Like I told you, because I kind of feel like I would be angry that this was now happening to me when they could have done that surgery in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say sort of. I still hold anger, like even 4 years on, like towards this surgeon that I feel, and anyone sort of looking in would probably see that if he had done it, maybe I wouldn't be in that predicament.
Mm,
Because I mean, it was a logical thing to do,
yeah,
and it wouldn't have led to me then developing kidney stones from multiple organ failure, and then having to go for another two surgeries after that.
yeah,
So it was just sort of a snowball effect that
mm,
potentially could have been stopped.
yeah.
But it was during COVID, and I
I,
guess
I can
I
also
guess
see that, because having a subtotal colectomy where they remove all of the large bile is pretty intense because sometimes they go in and they can't do it by keyhole. They've got to open you up,
mm,
and it's quite a lot to recover from. So I can see that you're 17 and they don't want to put you through this, but at the same time, your bile was pretty much messed up with
yeah,
ulcerative colitis. Was
yeah,
it
it was dead. Like I
bad?
always sort of look back and think if you've got a sort of a gangrenous limb or gangrenous hand that's really infected and you
Yeah.
can't feel it or you've got severe frostbite in it, I mean, what they're going to do these days is just sort of cut it off because it's dead. And that was sort of the same thing for my bowel
Mm,
because it wasn't giving me any quality of life. It was
yeah.
just kicking every bit of nutrients and food that was going in there out, and just wasn't working. And it was pulling the rest of my sort of body down with it.
Mm.
Um, so yeah,
So whenever you kind of get past this really tricky stage of being back in and having your further surgery and stuff, what was that like, recovering? Because you did have a lot of, and I know you said we were talking before we hit record about pneumonia and things. That did
yeah.
really impact you. What was your recovery very long? How did you manage?
So, interestingly, for the second surgery, the anaesthetist said to me, think of like your happy place. And being a triathlete, as we touched on, I was like, oh, think of Ironman Hawaii,
Hmm.
as the Ironman championships out there. And I was like, I really want to do an Ironman someday.
Hmm.
So I woke up from surgery and, um, like as soon as I said to my mum, like, we're gonna do an Ironman next year, like
Like,
whatever.
uh-huh.
So a year on, we did an Ironman. We did a half Ironman about 8 months on, and then did a full one pretty much exactly a year on. It wasn't pretty. We did it in 15 hours and 1 minute, but we actually did longer than the distance because
Wow.
we didn't want to come short and then sort of realize we hadn't actually done it. So an Ironman consists of a 2.4 mile swim, a 112-mile bike, and then a 26.2 mile run, a marathon on the end. And it's consistent. Like there's no breaks unless you have to take a break to go to the toilet or eat some food. And it was a long day, but it was very rewarding. And it was what helped me um, recover quickly. Like from leaving hospital after spending 6 weeks in hospital um, like coming back into the ward and then unfortunately developing MRSA infection.
Mhm.
And it wasn't a clean and easy journey, but it gave me that peace of mind that it was either sort of give up or
Mm.
do something about it and control the controllables because that's it's the hardest thing. But once you get through that pain, you start realizing that your life is not over, then you can do anything. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I think when you come through surgeries like that, you want to say yes to everything. It's like
yeah,
nothing that like you can't go after, you can't pursue. It's like you've got all of a sudden you've been given life that you
yeah,
haven't years, and you just I don't know, you get this grit and determination to be able to succeed and defy the odds of a stoma bag will take away your quality of life when you know that it's completely changed things for you and given you quality of life. You you touched there a little bit on the pain. Was that pain like was it instant, more or less? I know you have the pain from surgery and recovering, but was that pain of ulcerative colitis, like was that gone whenever you woke up?
um, yes, yeah. I would say, like, as soon as I had the bag, like, putting the surgical pain aside,
Mhm.
the well, not having to go to the toilet and be sat on the toilet for
Yeah.
10 hours a day was just so relieving. Like, it was sort of almost too good to be true. Like, you just couldn't believe that you got your life back as such. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
the pain, what?
you poop into a
Sorry.
bag and it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, yeah, and it was like it was sort of a miracle that it just happens because you can't control it, but like all of a sudden your bag just starts filling up and
Mhm.
it's yeah, it's pain free. It's the most amazing thing, really.
Yeah. And I know like and anybody else won't get this apart from someone with a bowel condition. That pain in your hips and in your backside and in your butt bones sitting on the toilet for so long, on and off it, is a pain I'm just happy to forget those memories.
Yeah,
Like I don't have to sit there for hours anymore. I don't have to be in and out of the bathroom. It's such
and
a great
then yeah, and then the best thing is like when you go to a public toilet, you don't have to think, "Oh, I got to sit on it. It's disgusting." You choose any sort of stoma bag emptying position you like and don't have to touch it. It's
exactly.
amazing.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. I totally get that. I really do. So on the other side of surgery,
Yeah,
would you say, and I know because I asked you some questions in relation to this, but would you say that surgery has been a game changer? Surgery has been a life changer for you?
yeah. So I would say it's a definite life changer. Like, yeah, you're given that sort of you get you're given that relief back, and you can like I've travelled to Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam with my stoma,
Mhm.
and it's just you couldn't I wouldn't be able to have done it before if I was having a flare up, and
Yeah.
you just get on the plane and you
Well,
can
and
go
then
like
you said there that the holiday had to be cancelled because your UC was in a flare up. So on the other side of surgery now, you like to travel quite a bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been to about luckily enough been to about 8, 9 countries since
Mhm.
I've had my stoma, and it's more just the fact you can go anywhere, not have to worry about a toilet. It's more worrying about like where you're going to go for a wee sort of thing.
Yeah.
But that's sort of an every person worry, and most of the time, like when you travel through airports, airport staff are oh, all right. You get some stairs, but I
Mhm.
mean, you get stairs walking down the road, so it's sort of like you have to live with it. And then it's like when you get patted down, you just have to tell them you got a bag. And sometimes they'll be nice and take you to a nice separate room. Other times they'll just be like, can't be bothered and just do it there and then. And it's a bit annoying, but at the same time, you don't really want to make a fuss. Or I don't. So it's sort of like I just want to get through, just get sat down, go and get some food or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah,
And so your stoma bag doesn't really hold you back. I mean, you're on Instagram and you're on TikTok. Um, I will be sharing your social media handles in the show notes below. So if anyone that's listening, watching, wants to follow Harvey, absolutely go ahead there, follow him, and just see some of his amazing content, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I mean, you do showcase your life with the stoma. You're traveling, changing your stoma bag in the airplane. You know, it just doesn't hold you back. You just crack on with it, which is absolutely amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem to phase on you. It doesn't cause you any issues. Would you say?
No, no. It's sort of when I was recovering, I sort of lacked someone that was on social media that you're able to either have that relatability or have that ability to message and just be like, "Oh, I'm having this problem today. Like, have you been through it? Like, when
Mhm.
you have your first blockage with your stoma, like, how do you deal with it,
Mhm.
and or how do you sort out health insurance with your stoma to go traveling with?
Yeah.
Um, because that's a must, um, and it's just it's just those little things, and I sort of found like, and sort of what drives me with social media is I want to be that person that I never really had, because I want to set that example and
Yeah.
have someone have give someone that chance to look back to if they need that extra bit of help.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. The whole idea of paying it forward. It's kind of why I came up with a podcast and
Yeah,
sharing my journey on social media, because I kind of feel sometimes when you're going through this initially, I think probably before surgery, you really struggle to be able to relate to someone or find someone who feels exactly the same as you, because people are showcasing their life post surgery. And I
yeah,
think it's important that we do kind of reflect on where we were before surgery, and then obviously showcase that life can be amazing post surgery, and
hmm,
it's to do with mindset and acceptance. So I love that you just don't hide anything, you share everything on your social media. Um,
think
and you do have a huge following. I think TikTok is your bigger social media platform. It's incredible. And you do go into a lot of detail on there. So I would definitely recommend you get over to Harvey's TikTok and see what he gets up to. Um, so like let's talk a little bit about our bile community. How do you find that? I mean,
it's such an amazing community. Like having that sort of dry humor to get you through the hard times
yeah.
is the best thing because you can crack a joke in it. I think that's the one of the best ways to deal with things. Is find someone that's can relate to you, been through the same thing or similar things, and just have a laugh because you're here now.
Yeah.
Like you're still alive. You've got to make something of it. Because you're given that chance. Essentially, I sometimes look back and think, oh, I was given that second chance at life. I might as well do as much as I can and travel the world and see things.
So do you have any goals? I know obviously travel is probably one of them, but you've also been training in your job role. You've advanced quite a lot since you've been through surgery. What are some of your like goals for maybe the next year or long-term goals that you have?
So next year, um, I'm looking at making some like sort of abdominal training programs to help with people recovering from surgery, but not also just surgery. Just if you're trying to get back into fitness with the stoma and
Mhm.
exercise safely to stop your risk of peristomal hernia, but also not just people with stomas. It's like elderly people that are
Mhm.
at increased risk of getting hernias because why not, sort of thing. Might as well help as many people as possible. So yeah, and then I'm developing a stoma belt at the moment that's going to be affordable. That's going to have my name, Mr. Colitis Stoma, on it. Because some of some of the belts are rather expensive, and you don't want to spend an arm and a leg just to get something that you really need.
Mhm.
Um, so, so yeah, I watch this space on that, and then um, job wise, like I'm training to be a paramedic.
Mhm.
So yeah, so like it's giving back to people in that time of need is what I found. And it sort of solidified when I was in hospital, and the nurses were um, sort of breaking some of the rules to me. Like I had a KFC in ICU and all these little things. But it's like the little things make the biggest difference, I find. And it's even just making someone a cup of tea or just having a listen to them for 5 minutes, and it will just change their day and their sort of outlook on life for a bit. So yeah, and then I want to keep growing my TikTok and Instagram. I don't know. I want to try and hit 100,000 by the end of next year if possible. It's quite a big goal because I'm only on 20,000 at the moment. But
Manifest,
yeah,
keep going. Yeah. Well, Harvey, I think you're doing absolutely amazing. You do have some incredible goals set there. I love the idea of, you putting a program together for people post-surgery and for the elderly. And I'm excited to see what comes of this new stoma belt as well. So yeah, I want to wish you all the best with that, and yeah, just keep manifesting all of those dreams because they're definitely well achievable. Yeah. So guys, get over, give them a like, give them a follow on TikTok there. Also follow them on Instagram. And if there's anything that we have talked about today and you've got questions, drop Harvey a message. I'm sure he'll be willing to reply. Like he's already said there, if you can have one person and answer a question, then it's worth doing. So yeah. Harvey, before we kind of round up today, is there anything that you want to touch on before we do round up, or have you got a little golden nugget that you would like to leave our listeners with today? Maybe someone who is like sitting on a similar journey to what you were, a little bit of advice.
um, well, like listen to your body is the biggest advice I'd give because your body knows more than your mind does most of the time, especially with bowel condition. Um, and if you have what they say, like a gut feeling, it's that something's wrong, go and get it checked out because it can unfortunately be too late, and you might have to either move on to the next treatment or have a surgery. But surgery is not something to be scared of. It's something that if you start accepting before you have it, it'll be a lot easier than sort of going in blind and then waking up with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's surrounding yourself with the correct information and sort of knowledge to be able to deal with it once you've got it, if that's what you're gonna have. So yeah,
Great stuff, great stuff. I love it. Harvey, it's been brilliant hearing some more of your journey in detail today. So, guys, like I said, get on, follow him on social media, and Mr. Colitis Stoma. His handle will be tagged below in the show notes. And yeah, do send him a message and start interacting there with him on social media. But from Harvey and myself, it's over and out today, guys. And do come back next week to join us for another episode from someone else. Thank you so much, Harvey. Cheers.
thank you.